Well, the Supreme Court has handed Trump a very, very minor win regarding mail in voting rights, and the Democrats are losing their minds. Technically, they haven't even ruled on anything. They've just said that he's not completely blocked thus far, but might be in the future. And yet, still, the Democrats are losing their minds. And I find it very strange. So obviously, I want to talk about this a little bit. So this is from Reuters. They say Trump's executive order issued in March directed the Department of Homeland Security to compile and transmit to two states a list of U.S. citizens eligible to vote in each state. And the Justice Department was going to prioritize investigating and prosecuting states and local election officials who issue ballots to people deemed not eligible to vote in federal elections. This, as seen by the Democrats, is Republicans trying to take control of who's allowed to vote. But this is, of course, always their narrative, isn't it? And that's the entire point, is they're playing the victim, as they always do, as they always have. And this is why I cannot ever see things the way they want me to see it, because it's what they always say. It's what they've always done. They've always tried to leverage black and brown people against white people. They've always tried to leverage women against men. They've always tried to leverage gay, trans, and whatever else against heterosexual people. Now it's trying to get Islamophobia. Oh no, you're not allowed to be Christian anymore because that makes you an Islamophobe. Like they're always trying to pit people against each other in order to get votes. So when they're sitting here trying to play the pity party and trying to say that they're the victim because they're not allowed to control the votes the way they want it to be and have votes come in the way they want it to be through mail-in voting in this case, then that's the narrative I see. I see the narrative of a snake lying. But that's the case we're in here now. It's a case of he said, she said, he said, she said, he said, she said, he said, she said. They're both parties are accusing the other of cheating. They're both trying to undermine the credibility of the voting, or at least that's the accusation by both parties, that they're both undermining the credibility of the voting rights and such. If I'm going to choose between the two parties to believe, it's going to be the Republicans, because the left has proven themselves to be snakes. So they go on here to say it also required, this is the executive order in March, it required the U.S. Postal Service to deliver ballots only to voters on each state's approved mail-in ballot list. So the government was going to create a list of who can vote, and then all of the states could only allow people who were on that list to vote. But instead, the Democrats want to be able to make their own list. And I've heard some claims that this is against the Constitution. But then again, the Democrats have always said that. Every time anything happens, the wind blows and they'll say, that's unconstitutional. You're not allowed to do that. So whether or not it is or isn't, I'm not sure. Or, I mean, like, you know, they stretch the meaning of everything when you talk about anything like the 14th Amendment and all that. They make up things. So Reuters goes on to say that Trump has vowed to end the use of mail-in ballots nationwide before the midterms and has long cast doubt on the security of such ballots, although evidence of voter fraud is rare. I mean, does it matter if it's rare? Like, again, it's all about the narrative. Like, obviously, I don't think many people are going to assume that there's hundreds of millions of people casting illegal votes or anything like that. Like, it's not about that, really. It is about the narrative. And see, this is the thing with Democrats. They'll go into the Senate and they'll tell you that a man can get pregnant and that women are just as strong as men. So when the Democrats see this problem of all of these illegal immigrants, and they see these problems of mail-in voter fraud and such, and they say, oh, well, no, those are our neighbors. And voter fraud through mail is very rare, very, very rare. I'm just disinclined to believe them, because they'll lie in the Senate. They'll say, oh yeah, men can get pregnant. Oh yeah, totally happens all the time. If they're going to say that, why would I believe them about this? Why would I believe them when they're trying to bring in infinite immigrants? It just doesn't pass the smell test. And Reuters would say Republicans are seeking to retain control of Congress in the hotly contested midterms. Restricting mail-in ballots would stand to disproportionately benefit Republicans, given that Democratic voters traditionally have been more likely to use mail-in ballots than Republican voters. Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder why the Democrats are more likely to use mail-in ballots. It's a mystery. Nobody knows. We're continuing on with the narrative. This is from the New York Times. The 3 liberal justices dissented. Shocker. It's a shocker that the liberal justices dissented. I would bet that they dissent to damn near everything Trump wants, with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson warning that the majority needlessly injects chaos and uncertainty into the upcoming midterm elections. which sounds very pity party to me. Oh, you're doing something mean. You're making everyone unhappy. That's basically what it says to me. The majority said the states that challenged the president's order could not demonstrate that they were sufficiently harmed by the voting rules that had not yet even taken effect. The justices cautioned that their order was preliminary and not a final decision about whether the administration's order will necessarily be lawful once the plans are complete. On that score, time will tell, the majority said in the 10-page unsigned order. So when it's all said and done, they might strike down what Trump wants if they deem it unlawful. But right now, nothing's really happening. So they found it wasn't in the rights of Massachusetts to block this, which it's already weird that Massachusetts can block it for like 23 other states. But in response to this, New York Attorney General Letitia James was quoted as saying it's a painful setback, and goes on to say the right to vote is sacred. Again, the pity party, like the ones always calling out the Constitution. They try to make everything sacred, because if they can claim that it's sacred and that they own it and that the other people are attacking it, then now they're the victims. They're the party of victims. If they say that it's sacred and they're protecting it and you want to change it, then that makes you the enemy. And if you're the enemy, then there's no defense for you, right? Everyone can just freely attack you, and that's the narrative here. So moving on to Kyle Kalinske from Secular Talk. As I saw his video here, he says he's basically quoting, not quoting, but paraphrasing what they're saying is, oh, you haven't been hurt by this executive order yet, so therefore. Well, and again, isn't this the narrative that the left has always used? I mean, don't they say it even now? Oh, when the Republicans win, they're going to return to the Confederacy, and they're going to put all the black people in slaves. They're going to slaughter all of the gay people. They're not going to allow you to be trans anymore. They're going to get rid of gay marriage and such. I mean, isn't that what they say? Like, even I don't even know how long ago it was, but I mean, at least a decade, I was hearing women tell me, or any man, I suppose, tell us to imagine that our daughter was raped. Well, we don't have a daughter. Well, imagine that you have a daughter, and then imagine that the daughter is raped. You see, that proves that old white men shouldn't be allowed to dictate what women are allowed to do with their body. But it's not their body, is it? It's the body of the fetus inside of them. So the narrative is always pity and imagination. Oh, you haven't been hurt by this executive order yet. Yeah, well, my unborn, non-existent, totally theoretical daughter hasn't been raped yet, so you want to change the laws in favor of you so that you can have an abortion for the sake of my unborn daughter, who he's not even existent daughter, totally imaginary daughter. That's their narrative. It's always their narrative. But the Supreme Court merely said, and this is from NBC News, the Supreme Court merely said that today's decision does not address whether the president's attempts to interfere with the state's administration of the November 2026 elections was lawful, nor does it suggest that the executive branch has any constitutional or statutory authority to implement the president's directives. Instead, today's decision merely postpones adjudication of those challenges, said Justice Sonia Sotomayor. And in a separate dissent, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson accused the majority of taking its eye off the ball by focusing on a technical legal argument instead of what she views as the larger goal of the Trump administration to secure our imprimatur, I think I said that right, for its effort to foment chaos ahead of the November elections. So the member of the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson, is saying that the Supreme Court, the highest law in the land, shouldn't be focusing on legal arguments because instead, Orange Man bad. Is that what she's saying here? That the majority here should have focused on Trump being a bad person and then ignored the technical legal argument? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to legalities, isn't a technicality like one of the most important things? I mean, being technically correct is like the best kind of correct in that sort of sense, right? Like, and she goes on to accuse the president of fomenting chaos ahead of the November elections, which is a hell of a thing for a member of the Supreme Court to say about the president. We just have this constant attacking from people. I mean, I understand it. I understand it when you're talking about YouTubers and crap like that. Like, of course, that makes sense. But when it's the Supreme Court and judges and it's just weird. It's weird having district attorneys and mayors and governors and the president at each other's throats. I mean, I guess it's probably nothing new, but with social media and such, it makes it feel like super surreal because it's like now everyone sees and hears things that used to always be behind closed doors. But where we had a Supreme Court member just now basically saying ignore the law because Orange Man bad, if you scroll down to Kyle Kalinske, Secular Talks, his comment section here, 100% illegitimate Supreme Court. This is a coup. Full stop. There is no law in America anymore. Supreme Court needs to be put on trial for the treason against the U.S. Let's stop paying our taxes. This ruling is unconstitutional. Election integrity, and it's just MAGA rigging the midterm elections. The Supreme Court needs to be in prison. This Supreme Court has hurt America in just about every way possible. So it's high treason then. I got it. SCOTUS is no longer a legitimate institution. States should begin ignoring it. Remove this corrupt Supreme Court. Right-wing SCOTUS needs to be tried for treason. They are guilty and need to be locked up or get the death penalty. It's time to arrest these justices. The Supreme Court needs to be removed one way or the other. That's a bit questionable, don't you think? The Supreme Court have made an unconstitutional ruling. It's unreal. And my personal favorite, as Kyle mentioned, 8 states conduct their elections exclusively by mail-in voting. What are they supposed to do? Oh, I don't know. Maybe they could do what everyone else in the world does. Or maybe they could just ignore the problem, kick the can down the road, and accuse anyone of trying to fix the problem of being a white supremacist and a fascist. Maybe that's what they should do. Obviously, it's what they're doing, clearly. But all of these comments, and I'm sure countless more. I mean, I didn't read through all of them, obviously. He's got 2.29 million subscribers, and within 3 hours there was 3,676 comments on this. So I didn't read through a whole lot, because every single one of them is saying that the Supreme Court, or at least the majority of them, the ones who aren't liberals, deserve to be hanged, which is it's quite the message that you have there. I mean, I can't control exactly what's happening in your comment section, but I do think that Kalinske, he seems to radicalize people on purpose, which for a guy who seems to have a nice house, big yard, he's got a dog, he's got an outside grill, he's always got his hair dyed just in case the Backstreet Boys get back together and they need him to fill in a spot. Like, what's going to happen when the socialists take over, dude? I don't know if you're going to be able to afford all that. But like I said, it's just a narrative. It's a narrative on the right, it's a narrative on the left, and I'm inclined to trust the right because the left has gone out of their way over and over again to make themselves into the very obvious snake oil salesmen that they are, and, well, I happen to be their enemy simply because of my skin color or my gender. So, on this article from Politico, it says more than 20 blue states sued to block Trump's order, saying it was threatening their plans. It upended their plans for the midterms in November and intruded on their authority to administer elections, which, if you believe they're innocent, you believe they're innocent. If you believe they're guilty, you believe they're guilty. This does not read one way or the other, really. If you believe they're guilty, they're basically saying, well, we were going to cheat, and Trump's disrupted that, and it's not fair. I feel like they could have worded that a little bit better, is all I'm really saying. But this is all stemming from Indira Tawani. She is a district court of Massachusetts, and she appointed by Obama, and she made a ruling about the order that she did not have the legal authority to do, according to the Supreme Court, because the order didn't actually damage her state. It didn't harm the states, so the district court lacked jurisdiction to do it. They lacked the jurisdiction to bar the federal government from trying to implement it. And the question is, why? Why would they do that? Well, the Boston-based Obama appointee Indira Tawani engaged in a string of speculations to find the suit justiciable, according to the Supreme Court. Now, Politico has this paragraph here. Voting rights and civil rights groups are also suing over Trump's plan. Earlier this month, Tawani granted a separate injunction on a case that blah, 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 blah. None of that matters to my point. My point is that they said voting rights and civil rights groups. So I checked out the link they've got. It's an official, it's an official.gov file. And the group in question that it links to, the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts. Oh, God. The League of Women Voters of Massachusetts. And they went to Indira Tawani to beg her to help, basically. So our judge is trying to stop the federal government based off of grounds they don't have any legal right to do, at which point they're not really a judge anymore. They're a soldier in the revolution. So Indira Tawani, here she is. She's technically Indian, I guess. I don't know what percentage she looks like. She must be some sort of half-breed. But anyway, she's born in Punjab, India. So I don't know. Maybe she is full-blood. I don't know. Maybe she's descended from British stock or something. I don't know. But she was appointed by Obama, as I said. And when on Wikipedia, her very first, she doesn't have a very long Wikipedia, but her very first article for like what she's done as a district judge happens to be this particular case. She presided over the sentencing of many parents who were involved in the Operation Varsity Blues college admission scandal, which, as you might guess, is just people bribing and scamming their way through college, which is, I think, mostly it was parents getting their children in, including the actress Felicity Huffman. Talwani sentenced Huffman to 14 days in prison, 1 year supervised release, and a $30,000 fine, probably not very much for a celebrity, and 250 hours of community service, after Huffman pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit mail fraud and honest services mail fraud for her role in the scandal. Huffman served 11 out of her 14 days. She couldn't even serve the full 2 weeks. So, man, actress privilege, I guess. I don't know. But the irony of that, the first case that Indira Talwani has on her Wikipedia as a district judge here is someone who is conspiring to commit mail fraud. and what did she do? She gives her 14 days in prison. Meanwhile, the president of the United States of America is trying to make voting have some integrity, keeping people from cheating the system, keeping people from rigging the elections, and she decides to block it nationwide to prevent that from happening. Huh. That's weird. That is weird. Anyway, here's Sonia Sotomayor, the Supreme Court judge. She's appointed by Obama as well. And here's Elena Kagan, Supreme Court judge, also appointed by Obama. Now, look, I'm not going to point out the obvious similarities that you might see between these three women, but that's not a woman. But I don't think that presidents should be allowed to appoint judges of any caliber, but especially the Supreme Court. Now, I know Trump's done this. I know he's elected 3 to the Supreme Court, and I'm sure loads of lower courts as well. I don't think it's just, frankly. I know there's been a lot of lawyers and such who have been presidents. That doesn't necessarily mean they were a good lawyer, but I just feel like there's a conflict of interest there. I mean, there's an alignment of interest for the president because they're trying to create a pathway for them to get their legislation pushed through, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good or right for that to happen. I just don't think they should have. There's a lot of powers the president has, and there's some of them I just don't agree with, like presidential pardons, and appointing judges is another one of those things where it just seems wrong to me. It also seems wrong that some district judge can block something like this for the entire country. But anyway, these people are losing their minds over this, which I will link below. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's a Supreme Court document, so obviously it's kind of big. But I'm going to read this highlighted part just to give a gist of what is actually happening. So, the president recently issued an executive order regarding election integrity. A group of states sued the government in the District of Massachusetts, contending that the order unconstitutionally infringes on their authority to administer elections. The district court agreed and enjoined the government from implementing the order. In doing so, the district court rejected the government's argument that it lacked jurisdiction over the state's claims because the states lack standing to bring them. The government has asked us to stay the injunction, arguing that it is likely to succeed on the merits of its jurisdictional argument that the injunction is causing it irreparable harm and that the equities do not favor leaving the injunction in place while the government's appeal is pending. We agree and grant stay. About 5 months ago, President Trump issued the executive order designed to maintain public confidence in federal elections. See executive order, blah, 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 blah. The order is an internal directive from the president to his subordinates mandating that certain agencies pursue certain policies. It neither requires nor forbids anything of anyone outside the executive branch. 3 sections of the order are relevant here. First, Section 2A orders the Secretary of Homeland Security to take appropriate action to create and send state citizenship lists to each state. These lists will catalog the residents of each state who are U.S. citizens and who will be above the age of 18 at the time of the upcoming federal election. States are not required to use the lists, and the Secretary may compile and transmit them only to the extent feasible and consistent with applicable law. Second, Section 2B requires the Attorney General to prioritize the investigation and, as appropriate, the prosecution of the state and local officials or any others who issue federal ballots to ineligible voters. Third, Section 3B directs the Postal Service to initiate a proposed rulemaking that includes several proposed provisions. One such provision is that the outbound ballot envelopes must contain a unique barcode to facilitate tracking. The order does not demand that any proposed provision appears in the final rule. All provisions of the order must be implemented consistent with applicable law. A few days after the order was issued, a group of states in the District of Columbia, hereinafter states, filed suit in the District of Massachusetts because they knew they'd win there. Now, that's just me adding that in. As relevant here, these states argued that subsection 2 and 3 are unconstitutional and sought to enjoin their implementation. The government countered that the state suit is not justiciable because the order does not injure them. The district court largely agreed with the states and entered a final judgment forbidding the government to implement subsection 2 and 3 as to them for the upcoming midterms. So you see, they actually sort of sided against the government in some ways and for the government in other ways. And all of this was saying, as applicable by law, it was literally just to make a list of people eligible to be voting for whoever it is in whatever state it is, and then provide the people in that state with the list, and then make sure that the people in that state, the officials in that state, don't allow anyone who isn't on that list to vote. That's really all it was. And also there's some extra precautions of the mail-in. I don't know if adding a barcode, unique barcodes to mail-in ballots is safe or whatever. I don't know anything about that kind of crap. But they're just trying to increase the integrity, increase trust in the system. And the Democrats are instead saying, no, let us do whatever we want. Open the borders. Everything's fine. Everything's cool. You're a fascist. Who are you going to side with? Which one smells better? That's the question. The people who are trying to increase the integrity of the voting system, obviously they have their own plans and schemes. It's not really much of a scheme for the Republicans. All they have to do is say, yeah, we need to have stricter borders. And the left wing says, no, we need to have more immigrants, unvetted immigrants, ideally ones who are violent and worship foreign gods. They don't have to scheme or machine. The right wing can just say something, and the left wing will jump at whatever opportunity they have to make a fool out of themselves. This right here, as far as I can tell, doesn't seem to be particularly evil. And yet, according to the left wing, this is democracy dying, and the Supreme Court needs to be hanged. And I thought that was ridiculous, so I wanted to whine about it. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please do the YouTube things.